Okay, so we're finally at the point where we can fully map the MIDI controller to our virtual user interface ohm component. And the way that we're going to do that, we're going to do this in a fairly kind of low-level chop way. We're going to use the bare bone tools. A lot of folks are developing their own tools on top of these things. I'm showing you kind of the most modern bare bones method because I think that might inspire some of the development of the tools that are being created that are much easier to use and more drag and drop. And I'll set a link to some of the examples of a couple of these tools that people are developing for making easier to use tools for mapping MIDI controllers to user interfaces, or for that matter, any parameter inside of Touch. But this is kind of a bare bones method. And there's some new features in this new release that are fairly minor, but nevertheless makes it a lot easier. So the way that we start is we need to grab a MIDI in chop. And what we're doing is we need to map these controllers, and some of them are notes, some of them are MIDI notes, some of them are controllers, MIDI controllers, and we need to map them. So this channel here is going to come in when I move it, and that's the way the MIDI chop works when it's in this default state in the simplified output mode. It'll just wait for the first event to come in, and then it'll hold that channel at the last value, and that's nice and clean. And then as well, if you click reset channels, you can just make them go away. So we need to add these controllers, map these controllers, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the parameters. So in this case, it's going to be parameter knob 1, 2, 3, 4. And we need a strategy for kind of creating a static order so that we can export the channels in the right order, and you're just going to want them to be in order, in a single chop order. And we can build up that order by using a technique that includes snapping in the constant chop. So if we reset channels on the MIDI in chop and then just move it in order. So in this case, we'll set up the first 12 knobs first, right? So knob 1 through 12. So I'll just go in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I've got all of the controllers in order, and you'll see that the order is actually doesn't really make so much sense. It's a strange order. It's 18, 17, 10, 9, 20, 19, 12. And so doing this using any other method might be a little bit cumbersome, but this is actually quite simple. All you need to do is take the output of the MIDI in chop, put it into the input of the constant chop, go to the snap page, and then click snap. And then you end up with the correct order of channels. And then it'll also give you an editable list that's quite easy to edit if you wanted to change the name in the future. And then as well, you can just remove all of the values, because the values we don't care about. What we're going to do is we're going to create a long list of channel names, or of controller names, that we can map back to the parameter names. And so we can now we can just call this in this case that was knob order. So knob order, and I'll disconnect this from the first input. And now we have a stable set of channels of controller channels in the right order. And that means that, for example, because imagine the next time you came in here and you move these in a different order, then your mapping is going to be broken, obviously. So we need the stable order. And the stable order, we can create a stable order here and get the values into that stable order by using a replace chop. So the replace chop allows you to define what's going to come out of the chop, and that's the first input. So it's only going to pass channels through of these specific names in this very specific order. So anything that isn't named this it doesn't have any of these names will not pass through. And so if I empty this and click and set this to the second input, you'll see nothing passes through. But if I choose to move knob 8, it happens to be called channel 11 controller 11, and that is in the 8th spot because of the order that we did the MIDI map and snap, which is all held here. So it's the 8th channel down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And that'll always be the same. So this is a really great way to create a stable set of channels. And what that means is now it's quite easy to take these channels, and first we'll just rearrange them between 0 and 127 and 0 and 1, and then we can rename them, and we can do and so when we rename them, we're going to use a special naming convention, because we're going to use a special method to export these channels automatically onto the ohm custom parameters. And we can do that if we first of all, in the channel name, we're going to use the name of the component, and then we're going to use the name of the channel or the parameter that we want the channel to map to. So the first channel, for example, is going to be called OHM knob 1. And so ohm 1 knob 1, you'll notice, is the first channel name. The rest are still holding on to their old channel names. So now if I put down a bind chop, or any chop would actually work, but the bind chop actually does this reverse binding that was covered in the last video, which allows you to go back and forth from the parameter to the MIDI controller. So if we go onto the bind chops common page and then go to channel name is path : parameter, and then you'll see that it has an export route. The export route is set to the parent, so that just means anything relative to me. So is there a component relative to me? Yes, there's one here. It's called ohm, OHM, and then knob 1 means any parameter called knob 1, it will push this channel onto it. So that's right there, knob 1. So if I turn on this export flag, you'll see a line connected, and you'll see we have one export that's correct, ohm, OHM, knob 1. And that's because it's used this naming convention to do the mapping. And so if we follow this naming convention completely, it's going to get easier and easier for us to map this already, well-named set of parameters. And so we'll start to get the benefit of all that work we put into in the past videos of naming these parameters nice and cleanly. So let's go back to the rename and get all 12 mapped together. So it's quite easy. We just need to go to the string here for ohm : knob 1, and instead of using knob 1, we can do square bracket 1-12, and then that will automatically take the first 12 names in this in the from set and name them ohm : knob 1 through 12. And so you'll see we get a nice clean set of 12. And you'll also notice now already the full set of knobs is mapped, right? And so we can continue on repeating this process for each of these pages, and we'll have the whole device mapped out. So let's do sliders. Let's do this process again. So put down a constant chop. Go to your MIDI in chop, reset channels, and then just find your device. In this case, sliders. So slider 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then put that into the constant chop and click snap. Okay. Call this slider order. And then, so now we have a new order. We need to merge these two together. So we can drop the values, and then we can just merge these together. So merge chop. And now we've got this set and this set in order based on the order that we connect them. Okay, and then over here, well, we can continue on with this sort of matching thing. So we can add a space here and type OHM slider 1 through 8 this time. And then you'll see that they were probably mapped as well. So it automatically maps. So you'll see how quite stable this is. If you have the correct names in your chop pipeline and they're nicely ordered and kept safe because of the replace chop, so you're gonna have a nice clean set of channels here, all properly renamed. It's gonna be very tight connection. It's gonna be very unbreakable. And so that's a good thing. So so if I move the sliders here, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's mapped correctly. Okay, so we can continue on. The next guys on the list are toggles. So toggle 1 through 8. Again, you just grab a constant chop. I'll be proactive and call this toggle order. And then I'll just connect the MIDI in chop. I'm going to reset channels, and I'm just going to find my toggles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then click in the toggle order, snap your order, and that's it. So we've got our toggle order and put them into the merge. Okay, so let's go back to the rename, and now this is getting a little bit unwieldy because I have to again come here and I have to type OHM knob 1 through 8, and this expression is getting hard to read. Or it's not even knob, it's toggle. And so it's getting harder and harder to read this. So we can do the same thing that we're doing here with the separate constant chops. We can also use a constant chop as well to just set up the same system here and then just pass in the naming order that we're mapping essentially to this long list of controllers in order, the mapping of controllers in order to the renaming of those to the parameters. So so all we need to do is, for example, grab OHM knob 1 through 12 and just make that expression be the name of the first channel in the constant chop. And you'll see that even though it's just one channel parameter, it creates 12 channels because we use this nomenclature. If I just typed knob 1, then it would just create one channel. But if you use a square bracket -12, you get the whole set. And so, and now with sequential parameters, it's easy to just keep adding more. So I'll just add another one. And in this case, it's going to be the slider one. So slider 1 through 8, and then add another one. And then this will be toggle. Okay, so now it's much easier to read what's going on. And now we don't need this anymore, this expression. And we can just use we can call this be parameter names. Param names. And then put that in the second input. And then we should still have our mapping. And we do have our mapping. It's easy to read to see if your mapping is correct because all of these have names that are mapped and they're all the correct name. Toggle 1 is mapped to toggle 1, knob 1 is mapped to knob 1, and so on. So this on the right side column, this is the parameter that's mapped, and this is the channel names. And so it makes a lot of sense because we're just mapping the name of the channel to the name of the parameter, so it's in the component. So it's quite simple to understand once you try it a couple times. So let's try buttons now. And so this is a bigger set, and it's going to take. I'm going to have to click through each of these, which I'll try to do as quickly as possible. But I'm going to first reset channels, and then I'm going to grab my constant chop. So we're going to need 64 of these guys. So I'll just call this button order, I guess. And let's go. So start clicking. Okay, cool. And then snap those. And now we've got full set, button order, merge them in. Go to your parameter names, add a new set, which is going to be OHM:B1-64. And if all goes well, we're mapped, and we are. Still mapped. Everything's mapped good. Yeah. Okay, the next set is the mixer page, which is button A, cross A, B, button B. So that's easy. Just hit reset channels, constant chop, connect. We'll call this mixer order. Or was it mixer or combo? Yeah, mixer. And just do your order. So 1, 2, 3, snap. Get rid of your values, merge it in, and then add your order here. So this is going to be, I believe it's, yeah, button A, cross AB, button B. So again, because they're in the same set, you can do it with space delimited names. So you could say ohm colon button capital B, button A, and then it was cross AB, and button B. Okay, and then we should be mapped. And we are. Okay, so then we've got one more page left, which we can do, even though there's different names, we can just go for it. So it's switch 1 through 6 and then dial 1 through 4. And I'm not gonna map the button X parameter, which is this button here, because it's a sys-X and it actually does weird things on the ohm, so I'm just not gonna map it. So it's just switch 1 through 6 and then dial 1 through 4 and we're done. So go to the MIDI in chop, reset, and then, well, I can just do it right away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's the right order. And then I'll put them into a constant, snap it, and then this is called combo order. And then disconnect it, put it right here, and merge it in over here. Okay, so the mapping's pretty much done. Just need to come to par names, and we need to put these in the right order. So it was first switches, so ohm, switch 1 through 6, and then it was dial, ohm, colon, dial, 1 through 4, 1-4. Okay, and then that should be it. So if all went well, then we have our dials mapped, our switches are mapped, and everything else is mapped too. Cool. So so now that we're fully mapped, you might be wondering, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And you're probably going to be controlling something in a network. So once everything is set up and mapped, and you might want to, actually, just to remind you, you might want to have the channel pickup on, and that's a feature in the bind chop, so that you'll notice right now knobs 1 through 6 are all at 0, and if I just touch knob 1, so knob 1 is right now at 0. If I just touch it, it's going to jump to this value because it hasn't come in yet. So, and see, it just jumped up there. And so if you turn on channel pickup, then you'll notice in this case now channel 2, or knob 2, and maybe I'll show knob 2 here as well. Knob 2 is the green parameter here. And with pickup on, it's not going, although I'm currently moving knob 2, it's not going to pick up that channel until the very end. And now that I'm at 0, it grabbed it. And so that's channel pickup. So it's good for having, for avoiding discontinuities when your MIDI controller is maybe just coming online, or it was connected to some other parameters virtually or whatever. So So that's a handy feature. So that's a good thing to use, is channel pickup. And then finally on the other end, if you're going to be using this on things, like for example, if you're going to control a color, I've already showed this, but just to kind of complete the loop, then you're going to use a parameter chop, right? So a parameter chop, and you're going to grab your parameters from ohm, and in this case, we're going to want to have knob 1 through 3. So I can use the same nomenclature, knob 1 through 3. And now I've got my 3 channels here isolated. Sorry. 1, 2, and knob 3. Okay. So these are how you would kind of connect this to something. So if you wanted to connect this to a color, then I could just put a null down and put a constant top down, and then connect this to the color. So knob 1, knob 2, knob 3. Okay, so now we've got a color connected, and I can set that color here. So no red, there's just blue, there's blue and green, and then white, make it black, and so on. As well, because this is all bound, I can not just move things on the controller, but I can move things on the user interface. And as well on the ohm, I can come here and change the actual values on the actual parameter box as well, because this is being exported on by the bind shop. And so that's kind of the sort of the underlying plumbing for how MIDI mapping and OSC mapping and all that stuff is going to work. And this avoids you having to use things like Python, which can be slow. So anyway, that's, I think, the overview of that new tech. So good luck with that.